This video is for Unit 4, Lesson 2, Ready, Set, Go. We're going to look at the Ready problems. So the directions tell us to fill in the blanks for the statements to explain the process for solving as indicated. So in question 1 or prompt 1, we are asked to solve for x. Sorry about the cat in the background. Another way of thinking about this phrase when it says solve for x, our goal is to isolate x or 1x. So if I look at this equation, if I want to get x by itself, I need to undo what's being done to x. So if I think about my order of operations, if you are in my class, you know that I say germ-das, where the G stands for grouping, the R for radicals. You might have learned PEMDAS, and that is also okay. We just sometimes have grouping that is different than parentheses, or parentheses that are used for other purposes such as multiplication. Okay, so if I'm thinking about isolating or solving for x, I'm working backwards using inverse operations. The only thing being done to x in this equation is that it is being multiplied by a. So I want to use the inverse of multiplication, which is division. So I would divide both sides by a. And when I solve for x, I would get x equals 7 over a. So I can find x or 1x by dividing by a on both sides of the equation. All right, so as I'm looking at this, I don't think we actually have to solve the equation, but sometimes it helps me to do so. So for number 2, if I want to solve for p or isolate p, I need to undo what is being done to p. So if I look, the number 8 is being added, and so the inverse of addition is subtraction. So I would want to subtract 8. So I can find p or 1p by subtracting. You could also, I suppose, just use the minus sign here, 8 on both sides of the equation. So when we do that, we would get p equals w minus 8. All right, in number 3, if I want to solve for m, you guys might have seen this equation before, I need to undo what's being done to m. So in the equation, E equals mc squared, that is still multiplication between the m and the c squared. So if my goal is to find m, I want to undo my multiplication with division. So I could divide by c squared on both sides of the equation. So m would equal E divided by c squared. All right, and number 4, if I want to solve for t or isolate t, if you take a physics class down the road, you'll recognize this equation. Again, I want to undo what's being done to t. So since RT is R times t, I want to unmultiply by r, which means I want to divide by r on both sides of the equation. So t equals d divided by r. All right, for number 5, if I solve for b, I notice that 11 is being subtracted from b, so the inverse of subtraction is addition. So I could find b by adding, should have just used the plus sign there, 11 to both sides of the equation. So again, when we do that, we get b equals 3 plus 11, and since those are constant terms, I can add those and get b equals 14. In number 6, solve for y. So I could think of, this as y times 1/2, and essentially I could think of this as dividing by 1/2 on both sides of the equation. But remember that when we divide by a fraction, we usually think of this as multiplying by its reciprocal. So the easier thing to do here would be to multiply by 2. So if I think about it, 1/2 times its reciprocal, 2 over 1, gives me 1. That's what reciprocals are. They're numbers that have a product of positive 1. So if I just multiply both sides by 2, 1/2 times 2 is 1. I get y equals 2 times k. All right, number 7, solve for x. This one looks familiar. Y equals mx plus b. Well, we have to do 2 steps here because 2 things are being done to x. First, x is multiplied by m, and last, the constant b is added to that. So again, if I think about my order of operations, I need to work backwards to solve. So I need to start by undoing addition or subtraction first. So I need to undo b, or the addition of b, by subtracting both sides by b. So now I have y minus b equals m times x. And then I need to undo the multiplication of m by division. So when I divide both sides by m, I get x equals y minus b divided by m. So I can find x by subtracting, I'm going to say first, subtracting b, and then, or next, dividing by m on both sides of the equation, and that order is really important there. All right, that concludes the ready section of the practice.